In this tutorial, we will cover some of the basics of using a property grid control. Let's start a new project. This will be a Windows Forms application and we'll name it Property Grid Example. We'll rename the form to Form Property Grid. Next, we'll go to the text property of the form and give it the caption of Property Grid Example. Now we'll go to the toolbox and add a Property Grid control to the form. Rename the property grid to Property Grid Example and then set the dock to Fill. At this point, when you run the program, you have an empty property grid. So in order to populate the property grid, we will need to create a class. Just right-click on the project name in the Solution Explorer and go to Add Class. We'll name this class Class Properties. For this to work, we need to import the system.component model so that we can use the attributes on our properties later on. Next, we'll insert a snippet. A snippet is a small block of reusable code that is like a template, and VB can insert various snippets to save on time typing and to avoid errors. The default keyboard shortcut to insert a snippet is Ctrl-K followed by Ctrl-X. We'll go to Code Patterns, press Tab, then Properties, Procedures, Events, and then go down to Define a Property. We will rename the private variable, where it says property value, to mMale to signify that it is a member variable. We will rename the public property to the same thing without the m underscore, so that we can call on this property later. Now we will make another property for female. Another shortcut that you can use is to use prop, P-R-O-P, and then hit Tab button on your keyboard twice. Once again, this will bring up the snippet. Again, we can change the private variable to m_female to signify that this is a member variable. We will rename the public property to female. We're going to do the same thing to create a dog and cat property. Now we will move the member variables up to the top of the class just to increase readability. We can use the shortcut keys Ctrl-X to cut it out and Ctrl-V to paste it back at the top. Next, we are going to add some attributes, and I will show you how these correspond with a property grid form later on. I'm just going to copy this and add it to the other properties and rename cat and dogs category attributes to pets. Now we will head back to the form that has the property grid on it and go to the code. Now we need to tie the property grid on our form to the class that we just created. We'll dim My Properties as a new class properties so that we have an object to work with. Then we'll go to the Form Load event and tie the grid to this object that we just declared. To do this, we'll just type the name of the property grid, which is property grid example.selectedObject, which is the object for which the grid displays properties. We'll set that equal to our My Properties object. Now we can run the program and see how our code works. As you can see, we have two categories we created with attributes earlier, the People category and the Pets category. We can sort our list by category or alphabetize it, and we can collapse and expand our categories. Now, to enhance our property grid, we will add some descriptive text for our properties to explain what each property is for. We will use the description attribute inserted directly after the category attribute to do this. For example, we'll describe males as adult boys. Sorry, this is poorly worded. I meant to put men and women for the properties, but we're just going to keep this for the sake of the tutorial. I'm going to add similar descriptions for all of the other properties. Females are adult girls, dogs bark, and cats meow. Now you can see down below where our description is in the property grid. Now I'm going to collapse these properties for readability and create another read-only property. We'll pull up the regular property snippet and rename the private variable to m_dogcolor and rename the public property to dogcolor. Then we will remove the set part of the property. We can then just click the arrow that comes up under dogcolor and select the Insert the Read-Only specifier option. Obviously, you can do this in a different manner if it saves you more time, but we just picked this for the sake of the tutorial. Now again, we will move the member variable to the top of the class with the other member variables. In larger works, you may want to create a region for these member variables. We will set the read-only attribute to true, put it in the pets category, and give it the description, the dog's color is read-only. Now we will create a constructor using the public sub new. This basically creates the default values for our class. We'll set the default dog color to black using the member variable. As you can see, this is a read-only property. It's grayed out. Now when we run the program, you'll notice the words dog color are just one word. To separate that, we will need to add another attribute called display name. We'll set the display name as a string called dog color that has a space in between. Now when we run the program, you can see that dog color has a space in it. This covers the basics of how the property grid works. In our next tutorial, we will explore more of what we can do with property grids.